Alright, so Teofimo Lopez is fighting Kambosos soon, is the Australian guy. I wanted to be excited for this fight. I was like, okay, Lopez just beat Lomachenko. There's not a rematch for some reason. And then I looked at it and I was like, okay, he's gonna fight this guy Kambosos. Watched a couple Kambosos fights, and it's hard for me to think that he's not gonna run through Kambosos. I don't want him to run through Kambosos. I think Kambosos has a lot of good attributes and skills to give Lopez problems, but Kambosos is probably getting stopped depending on how he fights. You know, I think the first 3 rounds are probably going to be slow. You know, if Kambosos is smart, they're going to be slow. Like, it would benefit him to have slower rounds. Problem with Kambosos, especially his last fight, is that there's real lack of uses of his jab, and he doesn't move backwards a lot. And Teofimo Lopez is an excellent counterpuncher. You know, usually Teofimo's first mode of defense is that shoulder roll pulling away, and he puts a lot of weight on that right foot, and usually pull counters or rolls away and comes back with big right hands, and that might be a problem. That's going to be a giant issue for Kambosos. Kambosos likes to pressure you, pot shot you, and then wait for these opportunities to throw these flurries. It's a fucking problem. Teofimo, that's like the perfect way to get knocked out. Like, we've seen it in the past. Teofimo is not afraid to pull the trigger in the first or second round and counter a right hand with a big right hand of his own. You know, I think the left hook could be a weapon for Kambosos, but, you know, there's still that problem of that big right hand, straight right hand counter. And Teofimo does a great job of taking his head on the outside when he does that. I think this fight might be stopped within 6 rounds, but I think this would be a good test and a good, like, measuring stick to see how good Teofimo is. You know, we've seen him fight other guys, but let's see him fight as a champion. Does he change how he fights? You know, he tends not to throw a super strong jab, but in the Lomachenko fight, we saw he was throwing that jab like a piston. You know, he was smart enough to have, I don't want to say a different strategy, but to put layers on his strategy in that Lomachenko fight. You know, before Lomachenko even got close to him, he didn't let Lomachenko initiate it. He was already throwing a hard piston jab at him before Lomachenko was really even in range, and that's even harder to do against a southpaw. You know, I think Teofimo fights much better against orthodox people, like his style and the way he pulls and dips like heavy on his right foot. You know, luckily, you know, it's almost better for him that Lomachenko is in reality right-handed, because Lomachenko doesn't have that Manny Pacquiao straight left hand, and he has an excellent straight right hand. You know, so there's a little bit of a natural disadvantage for Lomachenko in that fight. I think if you replaced Lomachenko with Pacquiao because of the dangerous straight right hand and the way Teofimo likes to defend, he would have a lot more problems. But, you know, it's crazy. We're going to see a guy be champion or in the top echelon of competitors at 135 for basically, and probably hopefully move up to 140, hopefully eventually 147, because he's a big guy. But we're going to see him in the round robin of champions and #1 contenders probably for a long time. He's only 23, and I think he's trained by his father. I think that's right. I'm pretty sure he was at least in the corner, which is also really weird to see. To see a fighter that successful trained by his father. Usually, like, that situation ends up not working out. And we'll see if it works out for him, or if they break up and maybe he falls off, or maybe he gets better. You know, I'm going to see mostly how Lopez handles this fight, because how he does depends a lot on how Kambosos approach the fight. Kambosos can do what he normally does, which is kind of, he pressures you by moving in and inching his way closer to you, but he doesn't do a lot when he does it. It's kind of his normal style, and then he waits kind of to counter you. He throws a jab a little bit. He gets caught by a lot of jabs because he's trying to stay in the pocket and wait for you to move. But there's a lot of situations where he moves in and he does like this, and he's juking you and he's waiting for you to throw so he can counter, or at least opportunity to open up. And those are perfect positions for him to get knocked out. You know, if he fights like that, he might get knocked out by the 3rd round. And usually I never say, like, oh, you know, a fighter's going to get washed, but, like, just the way he fights, Teofimo hits way harder. Like, Kambosos really can't go shot for shot with Teofimo. Like, there's no comparison. Teofimo, I don't know what it is. Kambosos hits hard too, but definitely not early, and he doesn't have that, like, hairpin trigger for counters the way Teofimo does. You know, they both hit hard, but it's just night and day. If Kambosos is smart, he'll actually try to box Teofimo, make Teofimo go first, and fall in backwards. And it does two things. If he boxes backwards, or moves laterally and circles out a lot, it's gonna make Teofimo chase him, and that is gonna slightly change his style of defense. You know, because that Philly show's, I'm not gonna say best going backwards, but unless you're pull countering a lot, it's hard to fade away to your right while moving forward. You know, if he can bait Teofimo into moving back, into chasing him, there's a lot more opportunities to land jabs and straight punches and those kinds of things. And that might be what Lomachenko was trying to do in that first fight. He might have been trying to make the younger, probably a little bit faster fighter, definitely bigger fighter, move forward, chase him, waste energy, get frustrated, not land. But this is the reason why I say Kambosos kind of doesn't have a chance. Lomachenko gave Teofimo all the time in the world to punch himself out and chase him, and you know, to miss and waste his energy, and it didn't happen. Teofimo, you know, it made for, I don't want to say a boring fight, but a slower paced fight and a pretty simplistic fight. But Teofimo moved forward, stuck behind his jab, stuck behind a strong ass jab, picked his spots on his right hand, picked openings. When Lomachenko's moving to his left, wide right hook to the body. You know, when Lomachenko's moving to his right, you know, he's throwing the left hook, straight down the middle, uppercuts. Especially when Lomachenko's using that tight high guard, trying to push the uppercut through. It didn't really work, and then he moved down to the body. You know, like, he's got a very sophisticated punch selection and 1-2, and I mean, if he's doing all these things against Lomachenko, Kambosos is in big trouble, because that style, moving backwards, it's just not the way he fights. I mean, maybe he can, maybe he's gonna show us something different, maybe him moving forward and throwing big punches is not the most natural thing to him. Maybe he's good at the other thing too, but you know, we'll see. I hope that he tries to fight like that. It's gonna make the fight last maybe until probably round 6, maybe even until like round 8. But like, Kambosos is just gonna get outboxed and outpunched. But again, this would be a good measuring stick to see, okay, we know Lomachenko's one of the best, if not the best. Like, how easily can he handle like a mid or even mid-lower tier opponent? You know, does he know he's better and he's just gonna walk in and smoke him? He might do that. Might be feeling himself. Is he gonna stay patient? You know, this is a lot of telling stuff. And probably, hopefully, the fight goes on longer and you get to see the techniques Teofimo decides he wants to use. Maybe he doesn't take Kambosos as seriously at first, which I kind of doubt that, but maybe he'll like try to box him at a slower pace and not hit as hard for the first few rounds before he turns up the heat. So I know all eyes are kind of on Teofimo right now, and everybody that wants some is watching this fight. Luke Campbell's watching this fight, and they're all looking for their chance to find chinks in his armor. So we'll see any of those chinks and how he does in this fight.